This is UMass basketball.
I know this. I'm the most animated coach that you've probably ever seen.
Diggins, he'll let it fly. Soft as summer rain. Rasul Diggins grows the UMass lead.
Hey, he's just being Frank.
It is time for another episode of Just Being Frank. This will be season 3, the start of season 3 of Just Being Frank. My name's Jay Burnham, voice of the Minutemen, alongside head coach Frank Martin. Coach, good to see you. I know you've been busy. Welcome to season 3 of our podcast. How you doing?
3 seasons. Unbelievable, Jay. Time flies by. I remember you and I just sitting around the lobby here in our building, just kind of throwing ideas up against the wall and you saying, let's do it. And I was like, what are we getting ourselves into? But, it's fun. These conversations are great. I know it's, as coaches, we're always, I don't want to say guarded, but, when the season starts, you're careful what information you share publicly. I'm exposed, like I told a local media guy recently, I'm exposed to the media, once a week for 6-7 months a year. And, their jobs are to ask me not gossip questions. I don't respect those, but when they cover our team, ask me real questions. And I've got to give them real answers. If I go phony baloney, then they have the right to come after me. And, that kind of that's not an easy avenue to navigate sometimes, and because I love living in the truth, and here we're able to speak freely, and and it's all. I'm about the truth. You're around me on and off the court. I'm pretty self-deprecating, and is that the right word?
I mean, at times
did I just make it up?
No, self-deprecating at times. Straight shooter at other times.
You know what I meant. And
yes.
I don't take myself too serious. I don't act like I've got all the answers, and on or off the court. And and at the same time, being able to engage in these conversations makes it fun. It's relaxing. It's low stress. And does that mean we can't be negative about each other or the moment that we're in? No, but at the end of the day, we pretty much know the details of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So why deal with the stuff that stresses us? Let's enjoy the things that we can celebrate and make us feel better.
Yeah, well, speaking of details, we've got a lot to get into on this show.
Hey, hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
you know the difference between you and I early May?
What? You're in a better mood?
No. You've got a tan and I don't. Well, that means you're out in baseball and I'm stuck in gyms. Well, hey, that's what that means.
Season end, I'm on a plane to Puerto Rico with my wife, and so that's the difference. You've been down to Florida plenty, and we could we'll certainly talk about that in terms of recruiting. I do want to kind of touch upon a couple things here first. This will be your 4th season overall that we get into you being here at UMass. First one joining the Mid-American Conference. That can be something we talk about over the course of the summer. But did you watch the game 1 of the Celtics-Knicks last night?
Buzzer to buzzer. Watched the whole thing.
What did you think about the ending of it all?
You got to score at the rim.
Yeah.
The Celtics, they didn't score inside the paint. And, Porzingis, I'm not into judging people when they're not healthy to play. That's not where I'm going with what I'm going to say. But if you go through his history, somehow, some way, he's just not available every game in the playoffs. And without him, they got to figure out a way to score in the paint and score in that middle section of the floor. And that became – Celtics shot 20 free throws in the first half. Guess what happened as the first half evolved? because they weren't making threes in the first half either.
Well, they had a lead even though they didn't make any point.
It was tied, up 15, 16, whatever it was at halftime, because they shot 20 free throws. In the second half, they only attempted 6. So, what happens when you don't score in the paint? The Knicks started making threes. The Celtics didn't. So the Knicks come back in the game, and then, they made one more than the Celtics, so they win.
They had 2 chances at the end there to get a game-tying 3-point shot off. I think they called a timeout before inbounding and then inbounded and had it stolen away. How frustrating is that as a coach to not be able to even get a shot off in a clutch situation like that?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't enjoy calling timeouts very often late in the game like that. When's the only time the defense has an advantage over the offense, Jay?
When they have a chance to set?
When the ball is out of bounds.
Okay.
Because there's a guy out of bounds and there's 4 on the court. How many defenders are on the court?
Yeah. You got 5. So you got the –
So it's the only time in the game that the defense has an advantage. So taking the ball out of bounds is not as easy as people think. It's getting a shot off a baseline out is not as easy, or a sideline out, because in the NBA there's no baseline out. It's not as easy as people think. You got to be prepared. But when you call timeout, you're also allowing the defense to prepare. So, it's hit and miss there. And against a team like the Knicks that have OG Anunoby, unbelievable defender. Josh Hart, unbelievable defender. Bridges, unbelievable defender. Jalen Brunson, I don't know if he's known as a defender, but that dude's going to figure out a way to make a play. They're a tough out. If you got to get a basket, like one play, one basket against them, it's not as easy as it sounds because of the defenders that they have.
It's going to be a fun series to watch, and I think Knicks taking game 1 in Boston certainly kind of tilts things a little bit. People, I think, expected the Celtics to take that game. So we've got for
the record, I think the Celtics win easy.
Okay,
just
being up 20 and then having that erased.
They got away from they had a bad second half. If they'd stayed, they give the Knicks credit. I'm not trying to minimize what the Knicks did, but if the Celtics stay the course with how they played the first 24 minutes, they I don't know if they win easy, but they win that game. They got out of character there. They'll refocus, get it right, and I think they win easy.
You've been busy, you and your staff, trying to put together a team for this upcoming season. I think we all know the world landscape that we live in, where it's pretty much year to year at this point for a lot of college teams. Before we talk about what we're going to do on this episode, we're going to talk about the forwards that have been announced for your roster heading into 2025, 2026. And then in 2 weeks, we'll talk about the guards. So as of right now, 8 players plus one that had already been announced. So 9 total have been added to your roster. What was the makeup? How did you decide kind of who to go after and how to piece this team together?
Oh boy.
What were you looking for?
Winning. I wanted to recruit guys that were impact players on winning teams. That was very important to me. I wanted to recruit guys that played on teams that won, and also that played, not helter-skelter, that played in structure. I wanted to recruit unselfish guys that enjoy winning rather than enjoy personal achievement. And that's a real tight line there, because the guys that win also take unbelievable pride on being really good players. So you can't recruit a guy that just doesn't care about playing well, because that only helps you so much. But you can't recruit a guys that are only worried about their numbers, their stats, because that destroys the team. So it's a fine line, and you got to be careful there. But that's kind of where we tried to attack our front court recruiting. I not to go backwards before we go forward, but the first part was keeping Daniel Sanford, Jaden Jinge, even Luca, who by the end of the year was starting to take steps.
Yeah.
You know, when we recruited Luca in our conversations with him, it wasn't about your freshman year. It was about your third and fourth year. And he's still not where he needs to be from if he's going to be our full-time, center, power forward or whatever. But he's made the strides that we were hoping he would make. It's I'm excited about the guys we targeted. And now, Jay, here's the second part to this. And I'm not going to get into the fine details of it, but this is a credit to, Ryan Bamford and Pat McWilliams. It's a different age of college athletics. There's money involved. And I help those guys raise money, but they're the ones that work their tails off to create the funds. You don't have funds, you're not going to have good players. Now, if you have a lot of funds, that doesn't guarantee a winning team.
Right.
But if you don't have it, you got no chance. You can't recruit. And especially, in this moment where all these kids all have agents. So you're dealing with agents. Recruiting used to be about the kid, the parent, the high school coach, or the AAU coach. That's it. Maybe a long-lost uncle that showed up at the 11th hour and wanted to take credit for the kid's development, which is part of the deal. I mean, it's you can't get mad at family for caring for one of their own. But now recruiting, it's 80% of the time you're pushed straight to an agent rather than the parent in the life. And so if you don't have money, you got no chance.
And kind of in limbo with a pending house settlement that UMass and some other teams have committed to say, hey, we're going to opt into this, which means there'll be a different pay structure. So I think we're all sitting here for a while now, people saying, well, he's got an NIL deal. And really the reality of it is, hey, I can recruit a kid based on what the financial structure looks like. And some of those big schools that you mentioned are folks with more money can maybe miss on some kids because they still have, the funds to overcome that.
Hey, Jay, so the show is called Just Being Frank, right?
Yes. Do you want me to just being?
So if I'm not candid, then the name of the show doesn't really fit.
It does not. No.
The show, correct?
Yes.
Not this season, the season before.
Yeah.
When the season ended, I don't know. PGR kind of
go for it. Yeah.
I got caught with my pants down.
Yeah.
When the season ended, and it's my job to lead around here. It's not my job to follow. Now, sometimes I follow my assistants or my players, but that's because I'm willing to lead in certain moments, in the hard moments. And when the season ended, I made the false assumption that certain players were not going to leave. And then 3 days after the season ended, I'm out. And I'm like, holy cow. So we started scrambling to recruit. And going into this year, the record had nothing to do with it. Forget the record, forget everything. I told the staff in late January, what happened last year cannot happen this year. We need this, and this. And we need to go find guys now and do everything we can to identify the right guys because you can't technically recruit them if they're not in the portal, but there's enough people on the streets talking that you have an idea of who's going to go in the portal. So you know who might be out there, that you can pursue. How do I know that? Because I'm getting text messages from all these agents, half of which I've never met before, about player A, B, and C that's playing on TV. Watch him. He's going in the portal. I can help you with him. So if they're doing that for other players, they're doing that with the guys on my team. So I think I was better prepared going into this offseason. So when the Ryan, Pat McWilliams dynamic, there's funds now with this house settlement. The collective is going into its third year. So Pat has worked his tail off to grow it. So there's more there. And then I did my job a little better. I thought the innocence of what happened for the previous 41 years of my career, I didn't handle the change that was coming when the 24 season ended.
Yeah.
I tried to be better prepared for the end of the 25 season.
And that was
So
24.
that's Frank being Frank.
Yeah, and that was coming off the 20-win year that you guys had a great finish, top 4 in the A10. And then I guess you're saying maybe a little naivete or unprepared for the wave of what was going on, and now this year attacking it earlier. And look, like even the coaches in the NCAA tournament, they're saying, hey, my kids are getting ready to play an Elite 8 game, and we've got people coming in trying to poach them. So we've bemoaned, and we can talk about the structure of college sports all we want, and we can kick that can down the road for this summer. But let's get into the front court of the new players that you brought in. You mentioned the returners, and we're definitely going to spotlight them over the course of the summer. Charles Outlaw, you mentioned winning, all right? Charles Outlaw, son of beloved NBA player Bo Outlaw, grew up loving him and watching him at a Trinity Valley Community College. They won their first ever NJCAA national title with him on the court. How did you connect with him, and what do we see from him on tape?
All right, so Greg Heyer, the coach at Trinity Valley. I met Greg when he was the head coach at Chipola Community College. Greg went on to become an assistant coach at Wichita State, LSU, and became the head coach at New Mexico State. Greg does a heck of a job. Greg was at Mineral Area Community College the year before. CJ was with him there. I didn't know who CJ was at the time. I know Bo, his dad. Bo and I have a friendship that spans some years. Matt Figure comes up to me in February and says, hey, I'm headed to go see some junior college games out in Texas. And I said, who are you going to see? He says, I'm going to go watch Greg's team, because Greg had left to take the job at Trinity Valley. I'm going to go see Greg's team because he's got a couple big guys that have a chance. So I had no idea who he was talking about at the time. But he's doing his job. Then our season ends, and he wanted me to go to Hutchinson, Kansas. Matt, that is, and Brian. They wanted me to go to Hutchinson, Kansas. But I had to go. I was dealing with my mom, first of all, which you're aware. My mom was not doing well at the time. So I had to go solidify a different recruit, and I had to go deal with my mom. And so with all that said, I could not make it to Hutchinson, Kansas. Matt calls me from Hutch, and because there were 2 or 3 guys they wanted me to see there, 2 of which we signed. Matt calls me and says, you don't need to come. I got this. So he covered
that kind of trust in your coaching staff.
Yeah, man.
This is the guy.
That's I know the results last year didn't show it based on wins and losses. I get it. I understand. Believe me, I wasn't happy. And if you ask them, they'll tell you that I didn't make them very happy. But I've got a heck of a staff. Like, those guys have been head coaches. They haven't just been head coaches. They've been coaches of the year in the leagues that they played in, they coached in. They're all really good. And but Matt said, Frank, I got this. You don't have to worry about it. And Greg's a trusted friend, so I had talked to Greg. So Matt comes back and says, I need you to watch this guy on film. I really like him. I think he fits what we need. I said, who is it? He says, CJ Outlaw. I'm like, is that Bo's son? He said, yes. I'm like, well, we recruited Bo's nephew back last summer. And so Bo and I had talked, but never brought up his son to me. Well, typical Bo. Bo's not going to promote his kids. He's an NBA guy. He's a 15, 16-year pro. He don't run around promoting. He lets his children earn their way through. So CJ had not played a lot of basketball growing up. I mean, he played, but it wasn't like he was committed to it. So as we start recruiting, we realize that his junior year in high school is the first time he actually really committed to structured basketball. And Greg Heyer, who I trust, I've recruited numerous guys from his programs, and He's a winner everywhere he's been. He told me, he said, Frank, like, I'm just telling you, if I was at New Mexico State, he'd be my number one big. And I was like, Greg, but he goes, Frank, stop with the but. You know how junior college basketball's played. His stats aren't going to be what you want them to be. I'm just telling you, watch the film. So I did. And there's a reason he's a starting center on a team that won a championship.
Yep.
Really good hands, competitive, big, can run. It sounds crazy. Like, he don't wow you with like wow plays, but he knows how to use his body to seal. And when you pass him the ball, he catches it and he knows how to finish. It's just a matter of his usage rate and his growth as a player to continue. But I think he's got a chance to be really good because of all the things that we just spoke about.
6'9". I think one of the characteristics, at least that I noticed doing research on these forwards that you have, is the size, the physicality, and there's a width, I think, to some of these guys that may have been missing in years past. And so, speaking of another guy that, maybe, I don't know, new to the game, a guy from Sweden, Bilal Osman, who came to the United States a couple of years ago. What is his backstory, and at 6'8", what can he do on the court?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I don't know who listed him at 6'8". I thought that's a little generous. Okay. I've read that where he's listed at 6'8". No, I've seen it. I'm not putting it on you. That's a little generous.
Okay.
I'd say 6'6"-ish. But I'm not trying to diminish on the player because
trying to be honest.
I'm just we're having one of those days, Jay.
Yeah, man.
It's
refreshing in this world.
Anthony Evans comes in to see me back in the fall. I was recruiting a different high school wing, and we missed. We didn't miss. It just recruiting got a little complicated. So we ended up not – the young man said, well, I'm going to wait till the spring. I said, okay, let's just wait till the spring. So Anthony Evans comes in to see me and says, and Anthony, again, guy that's been in the business for a long time, been a head coach. He knows a lot of folks. He comes in to see me and says, there's a big wing that can really, really shoot the ball that nobody knows about because he just got in the country. And so he's never really been on the circuit, the AAU deal.
Yeah.
So not a lot of people know about him. I said, all right, whatever. It's this is like, I don't remember, October sometime. And I probably didn't follow up as aggressively as I needed to with Anthony. Why? Because I was more worried would get my team ready for the season at this time. And, Anthony periodically would pop his head in and say, hey, by the way. So finally, I don't remember when it was. We're already in season. So I sat down. I started watching him play on film some. And I'm like, holy cow, this guy can really shoot the basketball. That thing leaves his hand. It goes in. And he's got some size. So Anthony says, Frank, he wants to come on a visit. If he likes it, I think we can get him. And so I said, do it. So the kid, Bilal came on the visit. His dad flew in from England. His family lives in England now. So his dad flew in from England and we had a great visit. And he said, I'm in. So we took him. And the reason we didn't announce him earlier is because you're not allowed to sign in the middle of the portion of the year. It's either early November or now in the spring. And so we have to wait till he actually signed to announce him. But long, skilled, can really shoot it, competitive. And I think I think his future is really, really good.
And, it's hard to kind of find information on some of these guys, which is, maybe beneficial. You kind of get them before, as you mentioned, everyone else jumps in on it. But an offer from Arizona State, it looks like, on some of these recruiting websites. So welcome to Massachusetts, Bilal Osman. We're excited to have him as a freshman. And you're still in the market for taking, kids. Carbucci on the guard side is another one.
Mhm.
Taking freshmen. You mentioned, Damjanec last year, still on this roster heading into this season. So maybe not as many freshmen in years past, but that's still something that you're looking at.
I'm a big believer in still recruiting freshmen. Now, what you have to understand is that there's a chance, and a much bigger chance than it was 2-3 years ago, that if they don't play, they're going to leave. And then if they play and they have unbelievable success,
They're going to leave.
which is fine because that
Yeah.
means they helped you win, they're going to leave. But if they play and they help you win, but they're not quite ready for that individual boom, then you can keep them. And it's the, I hate wording it like this, but the money game is not as complicated as it is with transfers. The money game with transfers is it's out of control. The amount of money that I should say out of control. It's what the system allows it to be. So people are just there's no one doing wrong right now. Players, agents, parents, they're not doing anything wrong. The system that's been created allows them to navigate their opportunities the way that they are. I'm not criticizing them. We've got a broken system. But the system that's been created allows the price of, like, Jay, like the transfer market's funny. Like, I call Jay Burnham. Hey, Jay, Frank Martin, UMass. Hey, man, I remember watching you play in high school, blah, blah, blah. I know you barely played this year at the school you're at, but I still believe in you a lot. Hey, coach, yeah, man, I remember talking. Yeah, great conversation. Yeah. By the way, I've got an agent now. So can you please call my agent before we talk again? So here's Jay Burnham, who played 1 minute a game, asking me to speak to an agent. Why do I want to talk to an agent if your ass can't get in the game? But it's the system. That's not a player's fault. That's a system. And how do agents make money, Jay?
They make money on the contracts that they get their clients.
Oh, so the more the contract is worth, the more money the agent makes. Yeah. So the agent's not trying to stick kids where they fit. They're trying to generate
do what's best for
market
them versus what's best for.
They're trying to generate a market that rewards their pocket. So,
and it's also, by the way, a market that that is dark. So they can say or bluff, or people can assume it's XYZ, but really the market is somewhere in the middle between, what you hear at the top end versus the bottom end. So
let's not go on a tangent, but to your point, professional sports, guys become free agents. You and I competing bidding against each other for the same free agent. You don't know what I'm bidding. I don't know what you're bidding, but we both have a salary cap. I know how many existing contracts you got, so I know how much money you have available. So if what's being offered is more than what you have available, I'm calling BS in my negotiation. And then the other part to that is that the athlete actually played somewhere the year before. I don't know about you, Jay, but in the professional world, if you're making $10 million a year and you play 1 minute a game, you're probably not making $25 million a year the following year.
Yeah.
So we know where the starting point's at, and we know what each other has available. So we have an idea of what we're bidding.
I think a lot of people, here's my tangent, can benefit from learning about how Major League Baseball's Players Association developed. But before the association, teams would tell players not to mention how much they made, so no one would know. Artificially keep the contracts lower. And I think in this case, it's kind of the opposite in terms of the effect, but the premise is still the same. So anyway, all right, we got that out of the way. Still got a couple,
but that's why we're still recruiting some freshmen because we think they can impact us.
And there's still, I think once we're still in this chaotic world, but you would hope dust settling, house settlement comes through, and then you're at least back to a framework of is this a positive experience that you provide for the student athlete? Education, facilities, mental health, nutrition, all those things that UMass does a very good job of providing. And you hope at one point it might come around to having that be part of the value package for a student athlete.
You still got to care for them.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not in a place where we can outbid some of these schools for player services, but we can care as much as anyone out there in the country about their well-being. I mean, that I say this all the time. Sometimes you walk in, you drive up to people's homes, and it's a very simple, unassuming home, and you go inside the house, and there's a powerful vibe of love and care. And you walk away from that home more impressed with the home than you thought you were going to be. And other times you pull up to these gated homes and
Right.
these incredible driveways and big double doors, and you're like, holy cow, and you walk inside, and by the time you leave the house, you're like, this home is broken. I don't care what it looks like. This is a broken home. And that's the same way. We can care. We might not be able to afford the nicest home on the block, but we can care for everyone inside the home more than others, and that's what we try to do here.
Yeah, and I should also mention UMass position pretty well compared to a lot of other schools at this level. Back to Bilal. How do you see him now that I'm thinking, okay, wing-ish? I mean, what kind of role do you see Bilal Osman playing? Hard to tell. Obviously, he's not on campus yet, but
I mean, it's he's a basketball player. It's the hardest thing to predict as coaches is what somebody that you've never coached, how he can play once you coach him. You just have to build relationships at the end of the day, and then you have to trust in their talent. The thing that gets young players in trouble is they get to college, and then they try to be good at what they're not great at. And that runs them into trouble. And as a coach, you have to make them understand, like, simplify the game, do what you're good at. And as time goes on, then you can work and improve at the things you're not quite as good at. He knows how to score. Bilal has an offensive feel for getting shots and getting other guys shots. And so as he gets here, that ability with size of shooting the basketball and scoring is something that I hope we can take advantage of.
The Bilal, Danny Carbuccia, and Dwayne Wimbley Jr., who we'll talk about on the guard segment, the kind of incoming freshmen that you've got for this class. We've talked about Outlaw and Osman, and one more junior college guy out of Pensacola State from Switzerland, Dimitri Clerc. 6'10", 11 points, 7 rebounds a game last year. That's the information I've got. Who is he?
Big, strong, physical dude. He played for Pete Pena, who's a longtime basketball coach at Pensacola Community College. I've recruited guys off Pete's roster before, including a guard that played for me at South Carolina, Hassani Gravett. That was on that Final Four team and was a sixth man of the year in the SEC. And Pete does an incredible job of coaching. He mentors players. He grows players. When you recruit guys from his team, they're not perfect, but they're character guys. They're about winning. That's what Pete preaches and does. And Pensacola is one of the I'm a JUCO guy, so I can say this. Pensacola is one of the better academically structured junior colleges in the country. They don't cut corners just to admit people into play. And Pete's kept that job he's been there 40 years now, somewhere close to it, if not 40. Dimitri is tied at the hip with Pete, and Pete coaches. You've seen what I like here, the ducking ends and the ceiling with the bigs, and something that 2 years ago we're the number one post offensive team in the country.
Yes.
Last year, we probably were amongst the worst post offensive teams in the country. Not trying to take shots at players. It's just the world. It's two different worlds. So Dimitri gives us some of that post presence again. The ability to duck people in, to win. One of the things that I asked our coaches to look for were guys that played on teams that got coached and won. And Pete coaches, and his team won. They won the region. Pensacola qualified for the national tournament for the first time in Pete's career as a head coach. Pete was the assistant when they won a national championship back in 1982 or something like that. It's first time Pete makes it as a head coach, and they won the region. And Dimitri can score, has a great feel, growth. Listen, whether you recruit a guy that's Michael Beasley talented or you recruit a guy that's talented down here, the challenge is not to just utilize them at their talents. The idea is to help them grow. Now, if this guy grows like this and this guy grows like this, well, now you've got a guy that gives you a chance. And Dimitri continues to grow. I mean, his growth under Pete over the last 2 years has been tremendous. Guys that get better continue to get better. Guys that rely on talent will always rely on talent. I think Dimitri gives us a presence that we never had last year, from the ability to catch the ball when you pass it to him, to play with physicality where his feet are in the paint, not 5 feet outside the paint, to be able to go get rebounds that unfortunately we couldn't get this year. I think he can do all those things.
Yeah, I mean, he just looks like a mammoth human being.
He's a big old dude.
But I think that the key thing you said there, because, we've seen guys over the years throughout this league that are big and physical, but don't have the hands.
Yep.
How important is that part and aspect? We saw Josh Cohen, good hands, good feel, good finish. And, he was a first league all A-10 player here at UMass. You mentioned the hands for Dimitri. How do you evaluate that?
Yeah, same thing with CJ. Yeah, if you got a big guy, passing the ball to big guys is not simple, because you got to, if you're trying to play on pick and rolls, you got to either pass it through low pockets or high lobs. Those are not easy passes to make. And then, or when they're posting up, you're, people playing over the top of them or fronting them, then you have to be able to pass it over the top to a guy that's holding off a defender with his body but needs to catch the ball with his hands. Or if they're playing 3/4 or behind, then they've got to work on their seals and keeping their feet in the paint, and now you got to deliver the ball away from the defense while being guarded. Those are not easy plays to make. Those are not passes that are coached in high school anymore, because it's not sexy to play in the low post anymore. Right. However, we just talked about the Celtics. If you can't score inside, you got no chance. No chance. I don't care how good you are. You can win on a day, but you can't win consistently. If your guards throw it to the bigs and the bigs don't catch the ball, they stop passing the ball. And when you have a team where people stop passing the ball to their teammates, that's a team that's going to fail. That's a team that's rolling up into a dead end. It's you have to be able to pass your ball to your teammates, and so guys that can't catch, coaches don't play because of that. And Dimitri catches the ball, so that's important, just as CJ.
You had mentioned with CJ Outlaw about, hey, don't look at the stats from where you are at junior college. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it's because is the game more guard oriented at the D2 and JUCO level?
Yeah, it's much more up and down. It's not as centered around big man play, because most junior colleges don't have big men. They're better players of the guards, so the guards end up shooting most of the balls. And Greg at Trinity Valley, which is one of the reasons they won the championship, he had 4 bigs, all 4 being recruited Division I. So if you look at individual stats, it doesn't look like much because he played all four. But the fact that CJ was a starter, if you combine his stats and his backup stats together, they average somewhere around 11 and a half points and 9 rebounds a game, somewhere in there, 9-10 rebounds a game. That's pretty good stats for your center spot.
Yeah.
Dimitri, on the other hand, he was the only big guy on their team that Pete can play full time. So he played the whole game, and that's why his stats are slightly better than CJ's. But that's where stats are, they don't tell the whole. Listen, man, when you take a transfer off a bad team and he's got good stats, guess who's responsible for it being a bad team?
Yeah.
Can't blame the bad players for being a bad team. It's your good players that determine whether you're a good team or a bad team. When you take a guy with stats on a team that won, then he's equally responsible for it being a good team. That's the way it works. And so I'm not a big stats guy. Don't misunderstand me. I always use Beasley because he led the country in every statistical category as a true freshman. But Mike rebounded the heck out of the ball in high school. Guess what no one ever did in high school? Passed him the ball. Everyone just shot three. So Mike being who he was, he just go get every rebound. But his offensive talent was incredible. And when he started to understand, like, you're going to pass me the ball? All right, I'm going to go score. And then it took off. And, so that's what some of these guys, if you ask me to criticize them, Dimitri and CJ, they should be better rebounders. That's if there's going to be one minor criticism coming from me.
Well,
at this point, that might change here in about 6 months. But
you lamented last year not getting enough out of those spots throughout the course of the season, and obviously there's a growth pattern here too. Okay, what are the skill sets of some of these guys, and then with your history as a coach that knows how to develop talent, something you focus on, right?
You have to be humble to accept failure and be prepared to deal with it the next day. You have to be confident to be able to take on whatever's is in front of you as a player, that is. And then you got to accept coaching and you got to play for the value of the team over the value of me. Now we've created a world in non-season at the grassroots level. And the reason I say grassroots is because that's what takes place before they get to college. Okay. If I was in the NBA, I'd be talking about the collegiate game, not the grassroots. But we've created a grassroots deal where guys have become workout fiends, which is right. I got no problem with guys working out. But like my high school coach used to tell me, like, he wouldn't do all them magical dribbling drills. He'd just say, I need you to dribble a ball from here to that spot on the floor. And when you get to that spot on the floor, I need you to pass it to that guy over there. If you can't do that, you got no chance to play.
Yep.
Well, you can do that against a chair. You put a chair in front of me, I'll go boom, 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 inside out. And you'll be like, holy cow, this big dude guy can play.
Right. And
I'd make the perfect pass. Now, you told me to do that against a guy that's guarding me, I got zero chance. We've eliminated the competitiveness of how hard it is to do things when there's people in front of you. That's where analytics go out the window for me. If you play against me, your analytics are going to look pretty good. If you play against, you pick the defender. Anthony Davis, what's the guy in Minnesota right now? Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
You play against me, your analytics are going to look good. You play against him, your analytics ain't going to look very good.
Yeah.
So we've lost that competitive moment. So getting guys in those moments as much as we can is so important to player growth. And the year before, we had two guys in Josh Cohen and Matt Cross. They had been exposed to that competitive world that I'm talking about. So what happened? They kept growing. They were already prepared for it. Last year, unfortunately, all the big guys we had never really been a part of that competitive growth and in every day in practice. So they weren't as prepared to handle that moment. Now we got guys but in the world we're in, guys left, guys get up and leave. It is what it is. I'm not going to complain. You got to go find the next guy. And that's what we tried to do. And we're really excited about the guys we signed.
Osman, Outlaw, Clerk. And then one that came on just towards the tail end of this, Leonardo Bettiol from Abilene Christian by way of Italy. He's your Division I transfer that has played a ton of basketball at this level. How did you identify him? I mean, I just looked at him in his 87 career games, 53 starts. This is a guy that knows, how to compete at this level.
Yeah, in a league, in a conference that's known for their bigs, and is I think it was like the 10th ranked conference in the country, somewhere in there, 10th, 11th, somewhere in there. So he's used to playing against really good competition. Right. Like, his junior year, they went into Oklahoma State and beat Oklahoma State. I mean, he's used to playing really good players and growing up in Italy, one of the better basketball countries in the world, playing in those club teams over there. He's been used to playing against pros since he was a little kid. So you're dealing with a different animal from a preparation standpoint. Again, trusting my staff. Matt came up to me and we were trying to figure out. I was still worried about, do we have enough offensive firepower around the basket? 15. When I mean around the basket, I mean 15 feet and in. Mm-hmm. That we have enough offensive firepower there, because a lot of these guys, it's not something that they've done in their past, other than Daniel Sanford. And we're in one of these staff meetings, and Fig said, "I coached against a guy that's in the portal when I was in the WAC conference." Yep. Frank, for how we utilize our bigs, because Matt and I work together. He knows what I like offensively. He also ran a variation of that offensively, so he understands the concepts. He said, "There's a guy that's the system he plays in, and he's pretty good in it." And I said, "Pull him up on the board here. Let me see him on film." We're just sitting around, and I'm sitting there watching this guy, and I'm like, "Fig, are you trying to get fired?" And he looked. I said, "How the hell did you not put this guy on the table sooner?"
Where you been?
Yeah, and he's like, "Well," I was like, "Well, let's get on the phone right now." And we did, and it wasn't a layup in recruitment, but he's an older kid. He knows who he is as a player. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. When we showed him our system, former players that he can see himself, and I'm showing him film of the different ways we use Josh Cohen.
Right.
And a guy named Mike Kotsar at South Carolina, and a guy named Curtis Kelly at Kansas State. And he's seen that where it's different players, different schools, consistently playing in a certain way. He was like, "I've got 1 year left. This looks like a good fit for me."
Yeah.
And then we, I don't just tell guys what they want to hear. I also tell them like what they're not great at and what I'm going to challenge them to get better at. He's not as good a rebounder as at least his statistics and what I see on film. He leaves a lot of rebounds on the table, balls that he's got to go get, especially on the offensive side. Because if he's so good 12 feet and in offensively, that if he's going to be near that rim offensively, when other people shoot, it's right there. Go get it. Don't accept not getting the ball. So we got to help him with that. I think he can be really good at that. But offensively, now we can go back to our dribble handoffs, to our off-ball screening, on-ball screening, and more importantly, a guy that we can roll it to or throw it over the top to that can catch it and figure out a way to score the way Josh Cohen did the year before.
Touch, right? Having a little feel and being able to score around the basket. 13 points a game last year for Bettiol.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. And again, growth. If you follow his career
from year to year,
better every single
and got more
year.
time each and every year. Yeah.
Every year you get like that's you're either the most talented guy in the room or you're the guy that keeps working, chasing the most talented guy in the room. He is one of those guys, just like these other guys are. They're chasing that guy by getting better every single year.
Those are guys that you've traditionally done very well with. He's 6'8", 240. I actually got a chance to meet him when he was touring campus, and he stepped out of your golf cart and was just this massive a man. I was like, oh my goodness. This dude looks the part.
Good hands. Again, good hands. Catches the ball when you pass it to him. He's comfortable with it. Here's the thing with all three of these guys that not Bilal, because Bilal plays more away from the basket, but the other guys we talked about, when the game's really physical, they're at peace with it. They're not uncomfortable. They don't get caught up in fouling and pushing back. They play through the contact and the physicality of the game. And when you play, the closer to the basket you get, the more physical the game gets. And those guys that play near the basket, if they're not at peace with contact and bodies colliding, they struggle because then they get wrapped up into that, which means they foul, or they're so worried about the contact that they don't catch the ball, they don't go rebound. Those are negative. Those are negative things. These guys are all at peace with the contact part. So now we got to help them, and with Leonardo. Is putting them in a world where he's already had success so he can be as aggressive as he can early while we help him. And with the other guys is now they're going to walk into a world where offensively they're probably going to be asked to accept a little bit more responsibility. And we got to figure out what they're comfortable with and what they're not so we know how much we can put on their plate.
Osman, Outlaw, Clerk, Bettiol. Those are the four. I guess Osman maybe more of a, you said away from the basket, more of a small forward type.
Yeah, he's more of a shooter, kind of off the dribble guy. These other guys are more, Osman. I don't foresee Osman setting a lot of screens. Or posting. These other guys are going to set a lot of screens and do a lot of posting.
Yeah, with the wideness and physicality that they bring to the table. So you add that to Hankett Sanford, who is an established player at this level, and Damjanec, who, we saw a lot, as you mentioned, down the stretch last year. And just a little teaser on him. He's been in the gym. He's been in the weight room, really trying to kind of take from a physicality standpoint, from his body standpoint, to the next level. So that should be fun to watch.
Yeah. So let's talk about, kind of put the whole conversation together using him and Jaden. All right. 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to keep either guy because we didn't have the funds.
Yeah.
Now we didn't have the crazy funds that Dan Sanford probably, if he had gone in the market, that somebody was thrown at him. But the fact that we here, Colby, Bamford, you, my staff, Dave, our trainer, everyone that's been around him has impacted him in a positive way, has cared for him. Everyone, we're all happy when we do well and everyone's complimenting us. But when we don't do well and everyone's pushing us away and people are kind of hammering us to change, that's not, but that's the real world. And when Dan went through those moments, he realized these people really care for me. And because of all that, he stayed. He never came in and said, hey man, I need more money. I'm going in the portal. Never. We made the offer that we felt was fair for what we can afford. And he loves the fact that he's had success here. And just like Jaden, they were like, we're good. You're my guy. This is our school. We're good. Let's get this done the right way.
Two of the best, by the way, just from my interactions with them. I love talking to those guys. I just saw them in here, taking shots and, still working on their.
We got to work on Jaden's dress attire.
Okay. We need
we
up a little bit.
No, he He did this. We have this yearly fashion show at UMass, which was last week. I saw what he was wearing. I was like, Jade, no, we can't do this.
I didn't see that.
No, because they watch TV and they see all these other people wearing all this crazy outfits.
It's a little too wild. We need to.
Oh my God! Like Jaden, like he said, I was wearing a tie. I said the tie wasn't the problem; was everything else around the tie.
Right. I'm gonna have to find a picture of that. We'll have to post that somewhere. I'll get on Sam, see if we can find a photo of that. All right, so Coach, in a couple weeks we'll come back. We'll talk about the guards, and we've got season 3 of Just Being Frank off and running. Warriors Timberwolves tonight. They keep counting Steph Curry out. I don't know if I'll ever bet against that guy, man. He's just. I know the T-Wolves are the favorites, but would you go against Steph and what he's done in his career?
Yeah, Doug Edwards and I, Doug on my staff, we were laughing about this yesterday because he was trying to instigate me with that game in specific. Yeah. I don't think Minnesota defends really well. Like the Lakers just were worse defensively. That wasn't like Minnesota didn't stop the Lakers. The Lakers were just worse defensively. They allowed Minnesota to do whatever they wanted to do. I won't watch regular season basketball in the NBA. I do watch some in now at this time of year. Like last night, I'm watching that Knicks Celtics game early in the game. What was the problem? The Knicks kept switching the 5-ball screen, and now you got the Knicks center guarding Jason Tatum.
Yeah, doesn't work.
And Jaylen Brown at 30 feet from the basket. I'm like, what? Like, why would you do that? The Celtics, I'm not sure what happened, but that they got away from that. Maybe the Knicks switched the matchups, so then whatever. But I don't think.
Wait, hold on. I've learned a lot from you over the years, and you're always saying, you've said a couple times, there's no like halftime adjustments is overblown. But in a case like that, do you think there were some halftime adjustments for the Knicks?
No, there's always, like when you're doing something, you got plan A going into a game. Then the game starts and plan A ain't working. You got to have a plan B. But that sometimes happens in the middle of the first half. That sometimes happens in the middle of the second half.
Yeah.
That's where I'm saying halftime adjustments are like way overblown. Like you don't reinvent stuff at halftime, but
you change game plans when you need to change game plans.
There you go. Whenever, you got to have a plan A and a plan B, and sometimes you got to go to plan C. And plan C is sidewalk. Yo, come here.
Some guy
go here.
Down
go
at the end of the bench. Come on.
Yes, that's like it's just run stuff. Because by the time you get to a plan C, it's probably not a great night for you right now on the sideline. It's but no, it's like the adjustments happen throughout the game. That's where I'm going, and it's all based on how you're defending because not everyone defends the same way. We're human beings, man. We're not machines. Sometimes plan A is you're the focal point. You're not having a very good day. So I got to stop running everything through you. I got to, change the deal. Your mind, you're human. Your mind ain't clicking the way it needs to click today. So you're not on it defensively the way I need you to be. Well, I can't just stay there. I got to make an adjustment. That happens during the course of the game. The only thing that you get at halftime that's different is you speak for longer than 30
Get more time
or 40
to talk
seconds.
about it. Yeah.
That's it. But I that's where I think they're vastly overrated.
We're excited for all the new recruits. I can't wait to dive into the other guys. I'll come back at you in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about them. And Coach, congratulations to your staff on putting together this. And we'd remiss if we didn't mention again the Massachusetts Collective, all the fans and supporters that have helped make this happen. Good stuff.
This is all new, man. It's a new world.
Yep.
We can sit back and complain, and we'll never be a part of the party. Or we can say, all right, these are the new rules. I'm not going to be mad at the players. I want to be in the party, so I got to join. I got to join and do what I can to make this getting back to the party realistic.
Season 3, episode 1 of Just Being Frank in the books. It'll be the best one ever, brought to you by the Massachusetts Collective. Coach, safe travels. So I'll talk to you in a couple days, all right?
Nice tan, Jay.